I want to give you just 4 steps that I generally take my clients through to help them formulate a strategy. First thing that needs to be said is that there's no one way, and strategy is not a checkbox activity. It's not about, finding one of these templates and filling out the boxes. Strategy is really those choices and the process that you need to go through in order to make those choices. First step is getting those inputs. So this is just data gathering, right? This is just your typical sensing and discovering. Should be inputs about the market, what's happening in the industry, what's happening with our customers, what's happening with our competitors, trying to get that market, user, and competitor data. There's a context about your business. This is really important for a product strategy because our product strategies don't exist in a vacuum. Like, we have to be aligned to the business and the business strategy. So we've got to understand what's happening in the business. This can also create constraints, right? Like, if the business is losing money, well, maybe we don't have enough funding to be able to invest into new things. So I will have to take that into consideration, that it's going to be a constraint around my product strategy. And then the last thing is the state of the product. If you've got an existing product, you can get some information and some clarity around the state of the product. Now, this is just data gathering as step 1. Step 2 is then to take that data, to extrapolate those insights, and to create what I like to call narratives. Now, narratives are a really important component of strategy here. And the reason for that is because it's not just what is the data telling you, it's also what do you believe is going to be true in the future. I'm going to use Amazon as an example here. There's this great interview with Jeff Bezos, a really old interview. I think it's in the 90s.
Where did you get an idea for Amazon.com?
Well, 3 years ago, I was in New York City working for a quantitative hedge fund when I came across the startling statistic that web usage was growing at 2,300% a year. So I decided I would try and find a business plan that made sense in the context of that growth. And I picked books as the first best product to sell online, which making a list of like 20 different products that you might be able to sell. And books were great as the first best because books are incredibly unusual in one respect, and that is that there are more items in the book category than there are items in any other category by far.
That's why he chose books, because it was the highest number of products inside of a product category. Physical stores could never stock every single book that existed, right? You just did not have the physical space. But having an e-commerce online business, you could. Often inside a physical store, if you have a book that's both a romance and a comedy, you had to choose between these two categories of where you're going to put that physical book. But the internet and technology unlocks a capability that can solve that. We can categorize things into multiple categories, which makes searching for things a lot easier. And his belief was that we could solve these pain points and we could build something that was going to be big in the future. And it's also no surprise that Amazon went from books into basically music and DVDs because of that context, right? This is what I mean by narratives. It's understanding what the data is telling you and then your belief about the future. Once we've done that, we need to start to model out our choices. So I specifically call this step levers, right? So this is starting to think about your strategic levers. This is starting to think about which paths do we take. So from a Tesla perspective, oversimplified, but 3 options: top of the market, move down; bottom of the market, move up; or do we just do mass market, right? And just do mass market only. Each of these have pros and cons. One's going to require more funding. The other one, hopefully we can be a little bit more self-sustaining. The other one gets us to our vision a lot quicker, but again, it's going to need a lot of funding. So these are all different choices. Part of the puzzle is we need to map these out. And this is kind of where I tend to find with my clients, we spend the most time. We spend the most time trying to, dissect these different choices. So if you think about Amazon again, you think about that books context. So Jeff chose books because he thought that would be the best suited for the context that they're in. You think about clothes or shoes or furniture. Those types of items may be big and bulky, or maybe they're items that people would still want to try on in a store. Whereas things like books, people can kind of get a bit of a preview and they can order those things online, as well as the context of the size of the catalog and all those types of things. So you need to think about which are we best suited for, which paths are the best. And we tend to spend a lot of time in heated debate at this part. But once you kind of mapped out these different things and you've had those debates, you need to make a decision. And this is the last step, which is deciding which path we're going to take. And this is really what bets we're going to make, who we targeting, who we're not targeting. These are ultimately your choices. So you're going to work through these steps to get data, to try to think about these narratives, to model out those different things, and then ultimately make those choices. And part of those choices too is going to be how we're going to measure progress and success. Now, if you're curious, I do have this as a whole workshop template. You can find it on the Mirrorverse. You can also go to productpathways.com and go to the free resources and you can find it. But ultimately, I hope those steps and that framing and context can help you anyways.